Hello, my name is Tasia Gilbert, and I'm going to talk to you today about memorizing lines. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I memorize lines, and hopefully some of my ways help you guys out there too. So, first and foremost, you have to know your story. So you have to understand it completely, know what's going on in every single part of the story, understand it inside and out, backwards and forwards. You have to know your character to your fullest ability. You have to know the other people's characters. You have to know what their motive is. You have to know what the moral of the whole story is. You have to know what your point is. You have to know what is the motive of every scene. You have to know the goal in every scene. You have to know where you're going to. You have to know where you started and where you're ending. You have to know the beginning, the middle, of the end of every scene and every story and every character. So that is the number one rule when you're trying to memorize a line, is to know your story. Because if you don't know the story, then it's really easy to get really confused because you don't know what's going to come next. You don't know what came before. The hardest part for me when I'm memorizing is knowing what's going to come next. So if you know it and you fully understand it, that won't be a problem because you know how to move the story along, because you know your story inside and out. Knowing your story also enables you to portray your character to the best of your ability, because you have to know what your character is doing at every point in time and what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And the only way to do that is to know who they are. And the only way to know who they are is to know who they are in the story. Whenever I teach a class or a workshop, whether it be kids, adults, or whatever, whenever they are reading the scene, whenever I give them the scene to do, one of the first things I always have them do is to read the scene, then really internalize it and tell me back what is going on. So paraphrase it in their own words, tell me who the characters are, what they're doing, what's going on in the scene, what their motives are, what their goal is, and what the outcome is. And that really helps with what I was saying, with knowing what's going on, knowing your story. Another thing you absolutely have to know is a little bit of an obvious thing. It is your cue line, which is the line that comes before yours. You have to know that for obvious reasons, because if you don't know your cue line, you don't know when you're supposed to come in, and you don't know what you're supposed to be talking about. So you have to know who talks before you, what they're supposed to say, especially because they might mess up. So if they mess up, then you have to know when you were supposed to fill in or come in, and maybe even say their line if they didn't say it. Another thing that really, really helps me is saying my lines out loud and acting them out fully. Not just saying them in my head, whether it be in front of a mirror, which is really, really great because then you can see your facial expressions, you can see how you look to other people. You can, then base off your acting off of how you think that you look to yourself, or just if you don't have a mirror, just anywhere, just by yourself, say them out loud and act them out fully, because that really helps you remember your emotion. And emotion is one of the easiest way to remember anything, because if you know what you're supposed to be feeling, then you know what's supposed to be, it's easier to remember what's supposed to be, what you're supposed to be saying. Like, for instance, I played Ariel in The Little Mermaid, and she has a lot of exclamation lines, or a lot of lines that don't necessarily move the story along. They're just there to show you how she feels about certain things at certain times, or just throughout the whole show. And so she would have a lot of oh flounder, or oh daddy, or what's that, things like that. And so it was, but how I did it was that if I knew what was going on in the scene, so I made sure I knew what was going on in the scene and what she was supposed to be feeling at the time, so that, if I said, oh, scuttle instead of oh, flounder, the audience, they wouldn't know if that I messed up, because, they're obviously both in the scene, and my emotion was what I thought she was supposed to be feeling at the time. Also really, really important is you have to try not to let yourself get flustered by everything else that's going on. So I know for me, I get really, really stressed sometimes about, what's going on over there while I'm supposed to be practicing my lines. And, you really want to make sure that you have a good balance of knowing what's happening, but also worrying about yourself. So like while you're on stage or while you're in rehearsal, you want to be able to adjust to if something goes wrong, if someone messes up, if something falls over, you want to be able to adjust to the situation, but you don't want it to ruin your flow. You don't want it to mess you up completely. You don't want someone else's mess up to affect yourself. So you have to have a good balance between the two, between knowing what's going on and not letting it bother you. So just to recap, first and foremost, know your story. Know what's going on, know your character, know other people's characters, know everything. Then practice out loud. Definitely practice out loud. Act it while you're doing it. So while you're memorizing, say the line to yourself, say it out loud so you can hear it. You know what it sounds like. You know how you want to act it out. And third, don't let things bother you. Don't let other people, don't let other situations, just don't let them get into your head. Be able to brush them off and worry about yourself while still knowing what's going on. And those are some of my tips on how I memorize lines. I would love if you guys would share some things that you do to help you memorize lines, whether it be easy or hard, whatever you do to help. Thanks for watching.